Welcome to the Superconscious Success Podcast, where Jen and her Superconscious Success family co-hosts bring you valuable content each and every week on topics relating to manifestation, spirituality, and most of all, using your superconscious to manifest success in all areas of your life. Now on to today's episode.
Hey there, Super Conscious Success fam. Welcome to another episode of our co-hosted segment, Raising a Conscious Human, with my amazing friend and parenting expert, Ilene and Jen. Our intention with this segment is to help all those parents out there that are struggling to create an authentic connection with their children and confused by the non-stop barrage of opinions as to what makes a good parent and what doesn't. My name is Jennifer Matthews, and I'm a spiritual coach, a naturopath, a personal trainer, and a mum of two amazing teens. I've always said that my kids are my greatest teachers. And as conscious parents, we begin to recognize that we have as much to learn from our children as they do from us. Ilene spent many years working as a marriage and a family counselor and psychotherapist. And so she's helped many people with almost every type of problem. And she's now an international best-selling author, speaker, and expert in conscious parenting and emotional and anger mastery. Take it away, Ilene.
Yes, okay. Well, Tia, we're really thrilled to have you on the podcast today. Your wealth of knowledge when it comes to conscious parenting, which is dear to my heart. I started doing it back in the 70s. Tia Fagan is a conscious parenting and authenticity coach. She's mom to two daughters in their 20s. She's been coaching and guiding parents and non-parents since 2016. She's certified with Dr. Shefali Tsabary, who's Oprah's favorite parenting expert, and the Jai Institute for Parenting. As a registered professional engineer, Tia is able to blend the analytical brain and the emotional heart. Tia is here to share her ideas on conscious and authority parenting. Welcome to the show, Tia.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tia. We are so blessed to have you with us because we are going to be talking about the topic that is, as Ilene said, absolutely dear to our heart. And that is how we may become that conscious parent that can begin to learn from our kids and then the same, and that we can start to use this earth as a big giant school, as Ilene likes to say. So before we get started, how about you just tell us your story? And I know you've got two kids, so obviously parenting is really important to you, but what got you involved in this conscious parenting?
I love that question because everyone's journey and how they come to conscious parenting is different, and at different times and phases in being a parent, or maybe even before they become a parent. So it's never too early, never too late. It's exactly at the right time. And so for me, I'm a mom of twins. So they're now seniors in college and working their way through and, individuating, continuing to blossom, come into their own. And I have been blessed to have them come into my life, choose me, and they have taught me so much. So for my own personal journey, I was an engineer, so super in my head, completely disconnected. If you could draw a line at my neck, that was exactly where it was. It was like, wait, there's a heart down here. It was always there.
Yeah.
But through growing up, I just disconnected from it because it was easier to stay in my head. It was more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And so when it came time to have children and that decision, it's like, okay, start with one, see what happens, and then
and
reassess.
You got twins.
And then all of a sudden the universe is like at 20 weeks during that routine ultrasound, because back then you didn't have an ultrasound until later. They're like, guess what? There's two in there. I'm like, no.
I didn't ask for this.
I think this is a joke, right? This isn't real. She's like, no, there's two. I'm like, my world was turned upside down right from that moment. Because, right? Engineer, plan, have everything organized. Control was my favorite thing. I'm going to micromanage everything. And then right away, this is all hindsight at the time, of course. Now I realize that this was their first gift to me of recognizing you need to learn to flow. You need to learn to drop into your heart. You need to let go of expectations. And so long story short,
Lovely.
I was put on bed rest, and at 4 weeks later, so bed rest, they were induced, NICU for 12 days so they could feed and grow. And then I read every parenting book, right? Because I had to have the knowledge. I had to be the perfect parent and balance everything and be there, not let them cry longer than a second, all that. So luckily I had that information going in, that it was about connecting and holding them. So I was very grateful I had that from the books that I read, but something was missing. And as they got into toddlerhood and started to, start that, hey, I'm my own little being. And as they got older into past 6, it was becoming really challenging for me, because all of a sudden I'm like, I can't control these beings in the same way I could when they were 2, right? They still were strong-willed and showed me like, hey, you can't really control me, but I could manipulate a little more when they were toddlers. And I kept reading. I'm like, something's missing. And then I actually came to my own evolution through not them specifically, but through horses. They became interested in horses. I had always wanted horses as a kid, was never exposed. And I'm like, wait, this is an opportunity for me. So I'm going to take lessons too. And the horses started to mirror back and show me things that I was ready for, that I wasn't ready to learn from my children, even though I was, but I wasn't consciously doing it. And so I started my own evolution of, so this is what understanding emotions are. Oh, this is what a boundary is. This is what that is. And through that process, then I came along the Conscious Parent from Dr. Shefali Tsabary. I read that and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the piece I have been missing. And so I stepped into, they're my teachers in a different level. Like I saw it in more unconsciously, like I was learning from them, but I was still in that control. Like, oh, they have to behave. What happens if they don't learn this? Then at 29 years old, they're going to be that. I just project into the future. But after reading The Conscious Parent, recognizing when they respond this way, this is a mirror into myself. This is an opportunity for me to grow. And so Dr. Shefali started having online courses. I took her very first one and I just kept going and going. And during her teen course, when my girls were now in middle school, it really cracked me right open to another level. And I'm like, it was like all of a sudden the pieces were starting to make sense for me. And I realized that this is what I want to do. And I did a complete shift. I hadn't been doing engineering per se at that point, but I was trying to find my way. Like, what do I want to do? How do I want to serve? And it became that. And she didn't have her institute open at the time. So I certified with Jai and then recertified with her. But anyway, it was just realizing, and I'm so grateful it happened how it did, because it always happens how it does. So that connection during the teenage years and preteen was like, because talk about a mirror, right? It's a whole different level of mirror if you're open, and
especially if you've got children that are strong-willed. And my daughter was I always knew she knew who she was. And it was like from very young, it's like she knows who she is and she's being herself, And so there's always that power struggle, because unless you learn to let go of it, then there's always this her and me and her and me. And so now it's like, go Eileen.
That brings up an interesting question that I was mulling over as I was looking at your materials, which is how, in the way that you're approaching conscious parenting, how do you see who children are? Who are children?
It's an interesting question.
Interesting question. So how do I see children? Right? That's the question. So I now look at them as, and this is, everything's different, right? Each individual child is different, but literally what are they mirroring back? How can I connect and see what they have to teach me?
Absolutely.
So when I look at a behavior, it's a reflection of what is going on within me. It's not necessarily the behavior or the big emotion. What's underneath the surface for them?
There's the cat we're talking about.
I told you, he almost always shows up. And so they are showing me the light or the
Yeah.
challenge within me that I need to start to explore. So if
Yeah.
I'm feeling triggered or activated, they're showing me and mirroring back a lesson for me to become curious about myself
Yeah.
first.
Yeah,
Always.
absolutely. I've learned so
Take care.
much just from the triggers. It's just like, okay, why did I get so triggered by this? And the interesting thing is, we now know, or at least my belief is that the souls actually choose us as parents. That we have a soul contract before we come here. That these particular souls are going to work together as like a soul family to teach these lessons, to teach these experiences, and to be able to help us to grow as and on both sides. So your child is needing to learn these lessons, but
Correct.
so's the parent.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fantastic. I think that that's a perfect description as to what children really are. And they're our teachers, I think, in many ways. Don't you
They
think,
are.
Eileen? Yeah.
Well, in many ways, they are my teachers. My son is 45 and he's still
He's still
teaching me
teaching
all
you.
the time. He's much more direct about it now. Mom, you need to do this. Mom, when you're writing your book, it needs to have this many chapters in it. And he's always right,
Yes.
which is really, really wonderful. So I just listen to him and go, yes, dear, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because over the years, we set up a coordination like that where but one thing I want to say about this is that means then, Tia, that that we I think it's really key, because I've been a therapist for so long, is when you're having trouble with your kids, if they're having a rough spot, the answer really is in the parents, not necessarily in the children. And when you do the looking that the both of you have been talking about, my experience is within, even if it's a very difficult situation, within 3 to 6 months after I make a change as parent, the child makes a change, and it's not them having a problem or having something wrong with them. And I think that's really key in this approach.
Yeah.
I
It is an
completely
inner
agree.
work.
Yes. Yeah. And I love how you said that when the parent starts to make that change, you see a change in 3 to 6 months. This is not instant. It is not magic. It's not I call it an on and off switch. It's not like, oh, I showed up this way, now everything's going to change. No, it's a process. It's an evolution, because not only do we start to gain that awareness of what is showing up for us, we have to start to make steps to create the change within us. It's not just in our head.
Lovely.
And that's where it's that dropping into our heart and integrating. We're not looking to get rid of that part of us. We're looking to integrate and allow, like, oh, I see that you're triggered, because the triggers I still get triggered by my daughters.
Yeah.
Because they're teaching me, but it's also could be an old one where I'm just out of balance. And it's like you were saying, my daughters are amazing. They're like, Mom, that's on you. That's yours.
Yeah,
They shine the light. They have no problem. And I am so grateful that they did that. Now, when they did that before I became more along the path, it did trigger me and I would get defensive, but that was a lesson and an opportunity and a remembering of, wait, when I had that space and distance, it's like, you were right. It was mine.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out for me.
Absolutely. And I think that these triggers that we're talking about, I think they're actually our shadow side. These are the part of us that we are resisting, that we're like, I don't want to deal with that because that hurts too much. I don't want to deal with what's happened in my childhood because that hurts too much. Our inner children are still hurting. So I think it gives a lot of great hope to parents to know that you can, no matter what your situation is, you can change it by altering your perceptions, by altering your self-worth and your self-love, because I think this is where a lot of it comes down to, is our inner feeling of worthiness. And
that's where my notion of we're in a big giant school and we've all come here to learn and grow comes in. I think a lot of the resistance that you're talking about, Jen, and maybe you run into, Tia, is our resistance to having to make change or look at things. And when you understand that we're all here in order to grow, and once a lesson, once an experience has brought us a lesson, it doesn't actually go away. It may go underground for a short period of time, but it doesn't go away. Then what you do is you embrace learning. Something comes up and you
Oh, here we go
embrace it
again.
right
Yep.
away. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add in here too that due to COVID and breaking my arm, I spent time with both of my adult children. My daughter's 52 this year, my son's 45, and I have a new saying: children never give up on trying to remodel their parents.
I like that because it's probably true. So
They're still at it. They're still at it.
now we know, Tia, that our society has been brought up with a number of different parenting styles, with the authoritarian parenting style, the passive parenting style, and the just no parenting style. So, the person that is completely disconnected. Now conscious parenting has come in, and now we're learning about how parenting is supposed to be and how we are supposed to interact. So if a child were to make a mistake, because children are going to make mistakes, it's part of learning. How would a conscious parent deal with it, as opposed to the way the authoritarian or the passive parent might?
Ooh, great. I love this because it's so, it's that remembering, how do we learn? We learn through making choices, doing behaviors to figure it out and to help check in with ourselves. Like, what is the truth? What is the opportunity? What's the lesson? So when a child is trying something or does something, and we can talk about all sorts of stuff, brain development, all of that, and understanding, this, so there's the understanding neurologically, there's no impulse control when they're little. When they're teens, there's a lot of remodeling of the brain, all this stuff. So we can take that
until they're
science,
like 26, isn't it? That they don't actually
on average
fully form.
26. Yeah, exactly. And so people often, a lot of parents seem to think, oh, they're manipulating me, or they did this behavior on purpose, when the reality is they're just moving moment to moment, just like we are.
Yeah.
Reacting, having responses, trying new things. And so if we can put on that lens of curiosity and go, oh, wow, so they tried that. So it's not about the behavior per se, it's about what's underneath, what's the learning, what's the lesson. So let's say a child, I don't know, throws something, gets mad and throws something. So a parent has a choice. And to keep it simple, they can punish and blame. What were you thinking? How could you do that? That was terrible. Go that route and punish. So time out, shaming, making the child feel bad instead of focusing on wondering why. What's the curiosity behind there? Or the passive parent who's just like, I don't have the energy to deal with this right now.
I'm just walking away.
Disconnect. Because so many people think conscious parenting is, you're not involved. It's like, no, this is the most involved you can be, because you're looking at yourself, you're looking at your child, you're like attuning, you're constantly course correcting, you're wondering. So in that case of a child throwing something, it would be like, I wonder what else might be going on.
Yeah.
Maybe there's frustration. Maybe something happened at school and the pressure cooker just built up so much that they had to physically release something. So it's an opportunity where it's like, if I were to get triggered in that moment, what is coming up in me? Well, first of all, I need to co-regulate, get myself into the present moment. What is the reality? So that simple lesson of what is the isness of what is showing up right now? It already happened. We can't change it. So how do I want to move forward with connection, with curiosity, with understanding? First, myself, my reaction, take that pause, and then stepping in with the child. Instead of shaming, go, oh, something must be going on. Were you really angry to throw that? Or did it feel really good to throw that? So connecting and being curious, but then we still can bring in boundaries.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a healthier way, but not when the child is in this activated state. No one can hear when we're activated. We can't learn when we're activated. So circling back around, mirroring, doing the co-regulation, I'm going to help bring you into your body, into the present moment again. And now we can say, hey, it looked like you were really upset. Is there something going on?
Something else going on.
Right. And they may not be able to verbalize that, and that's okay. But they can feel held and safe. and allow those big emotions to go through, because we can hold the container, because we now are able to deal with that anger or frustration or whatever else is going on. So the conscious parenting is about that heart-to-heart connection, the attuning, the being curious, creating a boundary when needed, but creating that boundary. I call them like loving boundaries. I'm doing this because I love you enough, because I trust and know you can step into this boundary, because I can hold it for you. You can bounce it, you can jump over it, but we're going to bring you back, because you are connected here, and you know what is right for you. And having compassion. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all have bad days. We blow up. We have a little moment where we say something, whatever it is. Why are kids put into an expectation that they're supposed to be perfect and well balanced and never have a bad moment, because then they're being disrespectful or whatever label society wants to put on that?
But we also know too that our parenting styles come a lot from our own parenting as we were growing up. So there are situations where you have one partner that may be authoritarian, one partner that may be conscious or passive or whatever. How do they come into the same place, so that if that's like our belief system, until you change that belief system, how are we going to meld together to do this?
So I'm going to bring in a few statements that my mentor and teacher, Dr. Shefali, says. First of all, it just takes one conscious parent.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there's science behind that. We need one enlightened witness. One conscious parent can make a difference for a child. 2, do both parents need to be on the same path? Absolutely not. That's a myth that we think has to happen. But then we are now trying to force another person to evolve, and then they can't evolve until they're ready.
Yep.
And Dr. Shefali always says the saying of, well, we need to provide a united front to our child. Just the languaging, it's a front.
Yeah.
Fake. That's not real. It's a front, and then you're creating up for battle already.
And you're pretending, aren't you? Because we've all got our own belief systems. We've all got our own way of doing things. And so, and people are going to, like you said, people are going to get to this place at different stages, at different times, you know, if that's what they're supposed to do, because they've got their lessons to learn as well.
Exactly. And children can tell when it's not real. They are so attuned to the energy, and they can read right through a front right then. And then also recognizing too, like, each parent has their own relationship with their children.
Yeah.
They're each, just like you said, that soul contract, the soul contract with each parent is different. They're going to learn and navigate. And whether the parent chooses to take the lessons from the children, that's that parent's own journey. Yeah. And so we can't force consciousness on anyone as much as we may want to. I mean, we get that all the time. I'm sure you've seen it, where it's like, I'm on this path, my partner needs to come along with me. And it's like,
good luck.
The more you push, human nature is to resist. And so just model it, just like we model for our children, model for the people around us, and they may choose to join us, but you're planting seeds. And when they're ready to water them, then they're ready. You can't make it happen any sooner than anyone is ready.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so let me step in here. As I'm listening to you, Tia, in the back of my head, I'm like being the everyday parent. And the question that came to my mind is, how you say, okay, you're looking at what is going on underneath. How can I be sure that I am finding what's underneath?
So there's so much there, right? Because I was there, you know, because I didn't just wake up and I'm like, I've got this all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. I'm never going to have it all figured out. That's the beauty, right? It's a lifelong path. So for the parent who's listening, who's like, well, how do I figure out what it is? You don't have to know exactly what is going on with your child, but we can be curious. Like, so for example, a child comes home from school, right? And most parents are like, tell me about your day, this is, and they are shut down. They're like, I don't want to answer your question. They don't interact with me. So then it's like, be curious. Well, what else could be going on? Maybe that child got scolded by a teacher. Maybe that child is really struggling with the test. Maybe they got in a fight with the teacher. Maybe they just need to decompress from being told what to do all day in traditional schools. What the exact thing is not necessarily what's important. What's important is you're not focused on the behavior. You're focused on, my child is having their own experience. I may not understand it. Because if we try to figure it out and we guess wrong and we say, this is what's happening to you, we now have created a disconnect. That child's like, you don't even understand me, because we guessed wrong. So we don't need to say what it is.
We just need to hold that space, right?
Exactly. And it's learning to hold the discomfort with the unknown.
Yeah.
Because
we
are taught in society, you need to know everything. You need to get it right. You need to No, we just need to sit with the isness that's in front of us and the unknown that's underneath.
What you're also saying there is that you also still continue to focus on love of yourself and love of your child. And I think that's important too. So you're not having to resolve it right then or name it. But you are being there and holding love. That's how, I mean, people talk to me about how the work that I do, I hold space for people, and I go, how do I do that? How is that happening? I can't ever quite figure it out. But it's mostly like the being with the person as they have their experience, as opposed to bringing them over as old-fashioned parenting used to do.
And you don't even
over to my side.
and you don't even have to be in the same vicinity. And this is the thing, because it's about holding that energetic space. It's about going, no matter what is happening, I still love you. And no matter what's happening, no matter what you're going through, I still love you. And I'm going to hold that space, and I'm going to send that love across to you anyway, because it's all energy. And this is what I think it is. It's like parents like, well, I've got to be right there. Well, you don't have to be, because sometimes, especially as they get to teenagers, things change, so, and space is more important. And I know, because I was a teenager, and I know that, there were times that I was like, Mum, Dad, get out of my face. And, so I think it's important that we understand the difference is that we don't actually have to be, around them, but we can still keep that love for them and that connection.
And that love and that holding space and that energetic aspect is really that accepting what is, right? Accepting the pain with the joy, accepting all of it. And we don't have to fix it. We don't have to change anything. We just hold it for it to allow, because energy moves, right?
Yeah.
But if we start to resist or fix, then it gets stuck.
Yes.
And we take away our child's or our teens or our adult children's process for them to be able to allow it to move through. So if we can just hold it with that loving energy, that love, that acceptance, it's like, I am here for you no matter what shows up.
And know that it's just part of their journey.
I don't have to understand everything. Yep. I just trust that you know what you need. And if you would like some guidance, I'm happy to provide some guidance. But otherwise, I fully believe in you, no matter the age. Because all you have to do is watch a little child having a temper tantrum. They're moving that stuff through.
Yeah. And then they're over it in like two seconds. Right. You just let them go through it and they're done. But
and that's an important point I want to put in too. There's a principle that I learned years ago that I think helps in a situation like this. And that is, on the earth, in order to get beyond something, you must go through it.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing parents tend to want to do is, I don't want my child to have this bad experience or whatever, but they need to go through it.
Right.
Absolutely. As part of their journey.
Yeah, completely. The only way out is through, right? And so the reason we, our parents raised us and we now have this opportunity, once we step into conscious parenting, to start to break those generational patterns and be willing to move through the pain, move through the difficulty. And then that also goes for moving through the joy together, the connect, all of it. It's not one or the other, it's all encompassing. And as we step into being a conscious parent, we are healing past and future and present. And that's the beauty. So when we break these patterns, we now are not passing that on to our children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to pass something on. We're human, right? That's the experience. And that goes on and on. But if we can break as many of those old patterns, that old pain, that old hurt, because now, we know epigenetics too. So there's science and energy. It's not one or the other. It's all.
Yeah.
And then our children now are like, oh, I don't have to carry this with me anymore. It's gone. So this reciprocity is beautiful.
Yeah. Now you talk about parenting with authority. And I was just curious, what is the difference between parenting with authority and authoritarian parenting? What is the difference between them?
So I guess I'm curious what you mean by parenting with authority, because I'm more like parenting with authenticity. So can you clarify?
Oh, yeah, no, that could have been what it was.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't ever remember saying parenting with authority.
No, it's okay. So parenting with authenticity. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, parenting with authenticity, authentic living, conscious living, it kind of goes hand in hand. It really does, but it's a different energy to bring the focus on the parent.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of times it's easy to say, I'm a conscious parent. So it's focused on the parenting versus when you're parenting with your authentic self, you are parenting from yourself first. So you need to be the parent for yourself. So you're authentic and you connect to your own pain, your own difficulty. And then you can parent with authenticity. And so as you are authentic, you are giving your child permission to stay connected to their authentic self.
So
because
this is
if
really,
we are not able to do it, how can we gift that to our child? Because then we're going to be in fixing, changing.
Yeah.
But if we know here, we're in
who we
alignment,
are and
who we are.
Yeah.
We are now seeing our child as their authentic self, their connection to their truest being. But that takes us reparenting ourselves. Again, coming back to that, going through
and
like,
that takes us healing that inner child we've been putting aside, that shadow that we've been putting aside. That takes us actually digging deep and going through it and getting out on the other side. And because we will get out on the other side, it's just something that we have to heal from. So absolutely. And once you get to that place, then then your child can learn how to be their best versions of themselves as well and who they truly are. So I love that. Absolutely.
Can I put a little pitch in here for
emotions?
I want to put a little pitch in for emotions because parenting, when I was growing up, at any rate, literally taught people to lie about their emotions. You say, I love you, thank you, I apologize, I'm whatever. You were taught to lie. And I think an easy way to understand being authentic, and I apologize, I'm the one who put authority in there. Guess what? My father was a military person. An easy way to be authentic is to really let yourself feel what you're really feeling and speak that truth from your heart and live that truth. Then it's a lot easier. So I think that's a simple way to do it. What am I really feeling here? And how can I convey that to my child or children?
Yeah, because sometimes parents are so afraid to show the emotions to their children because it's like, well, if I do that, then they're going to think I'm weak. If I do that, then they're going to, but they need to understand that we're people
well,
too.
Not only that, this idea that emotions are weak, it takes more strength than anything in the world to be working with emotions.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's a figment of somebody's imagination 30 generations ago.
Exactly.
And
unfortunately it's something that still continues to this day, which is why boys are told not to cry, and and this stuff still happens to this day, and it's sad because we know that emotions are so important for our kids to grow and to expand. So absolutely.
Well, here we are doing our part to change that.
We are, absolutely. So what's so if I could ask you, what is parenting with intention, Tia?
So for me, parenting with intention, it's all kind of the same. It's a different flavor of the same stuff, but really intentional parenting for me, bringing in intentions is important, because when we parent with intention versus parent with a goal or something, it has a different energy.
Yeah.
So when you think of, like, I want to be a good parent, what does that mean? That doesn't mean it, right? It's, you can't feel it. There's no energy behind it, and it's good or bad. So it already comes into this either or.
Yeah.
Parenting with intention is an and for me.
Yeah.
So you can, excuse me, you can parent with an intention. I intend to show up in the present moment and in acceptance in each moment. So we are that at our core. Every human is that. So when we focus on an intention, we already are. Now we can stray from that because we're human, but we always have it within us, versus I'm not going to be judgmental. Well, you know what? You're going to be, so then you're failing at that part of parenting, versus the intention of I am going to be in acceptance in each moment it's a flowing with life. It's an allowance. Brings in grace and compassion.
Yeah.
And that loving space, versus when we aren't parenting from intention, we're goal oriented. We tend to fall into control or all these other things.
And being an engineer, I assume that goals was probably the way that you would have run things.
100%.
And because I know myself, I don't do goal setting, I do intention setting, because I want to put that feeling and those emotions into it. And so so I think that that's a really powerful thing for us to understand the difference, because if you can put the emotion into it and the feelings into it, then it's a present moment by moment experience.
Exactly.
And you're of complete acceptance that, you know what, I am human and that things are going to happen sometimes, but I'm accepting of myself.
Yeah. And parenting with intention also recognizes when we fall a little to the side, right? Because we're human, we see the opportunity that, oh, here's a lesson, here's something for me to go within, or wow, that was a remembering.
Yes.
So it provides a different perspective of showing up in each moment for ourselves, for children, for anyone we touch, versus, oh, that happened, I'm bad. No, this screw up, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter what you want to label it, the languaging that you use, your self-critic comes in, versus hey.
Yeah. So what
the tagline on my radio program that I did for 13 years, I'd like to just put in here because I was thrilled to see how you work on it. It's pay attention not to what you want to overcome, but to what you want to become. And that's a way I have of seeing what you're talking about.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Totally. So Tia, we have had an incredible conversation today, but if you could give our listeners 3 things that they could do right now, that they could do to change their parenting style or to start to work on themselves, what would be 3 things you would suggest?
So 3 things. Oh, it's hard to narrow it down. Because, and when I say that, I don't mean that in like, there has to be 3 perfect things. Right. It means the 3 things could be different for each person.
Yes. So
I'm going
for you,
to encompass it as best I can. Yeah. So I would say, first and foremost, learn to be comfortable in your own skin in all parts of you, right? So when you are feeling that strangle feeling in your throat or a tightness in your chest, that's just a message. It's just an awareness, because our body talks to us. So learning to connect with the body and the languaging it's giving to you, and be with that uncomfortable feeling. So when you see your child struggling, we often feel that, oh, I got to fix it, I got to change it. No, just sit with that feeling.
Yeah. So
learning to be with, which allows back to the other part of the conversation, then we can start to go through it, right? Seeing your child's behavior as a form of communication. So rather than changing behavior, go, oh, they're communicating something to me. What could that be?
Yeah.
There's a direct parenting one. And then learning to, how do I put it? Learning to hold space.
Yeah, that's a really important one. Absolutely.
Which is hard.
It's super hard.
So giving yourself compassion as you learn to experience what that is. Because if you don't know what it is, you've never felt it from someone else. This is such a esoteric idea. And so can I give a quick example?
Yeah, go for it.
Like for me learning, maybe that'll be helpful for people who've never had someone hold space for them or who've never done that for someone else. So when one of my daughters was, I can't remember, you don't remember the exact, it was either late, maybe 14 years old, so all this stuff is stirring. And she always wanted to talk when I was tired and ready to go to bed. So I was laying in bed and she would come into my room and just start sharing about her day. That was when she would unleash. And before I would be like trying to fix and change. And I'm like, no, I need to be with. So this kind of encompasses a lot of what we just talked about in those 3 things as well. So I would notice she'd start sharing the difficulty that she was struggling with. And I would notice my throat would tighten. I would have all these feelings. I would want to fix and change. And she was talking. And I just remember witnessing my own experience while also listening to her. And the beauty of our children, when we give them our opportunity to tell us when things are going wrong, is wrong. And I say that in quotes because it's not wrong. It's just a lesson. So I remember one night specifically, she was sharing and I was like really rumbling inside. And it was like, and I just blurred out like, have you tried blah? And she stopped talking. She left the room.
And didn't come back?
And I just remember sitting there, you screwed that one up.
Yeah.
And then I just sat with that. Okay. So I wanted to fix and change because I was focusing on the behaviors of what was showing up and I wanted to help her and make her discomfort go away. But it was about me getting rid of my discomfort. And the beauty of this amazing soul is 5 minutes later, she came back in and she gave me a second chance.
And you didn't make the same mistake again.
I did not. I literally just sat there. I remember it felt like I was biting my tongue when it would rise up. And it was the connection, the heart space, all of that holding space. She felt seen and heard. I didn't have to do anything. She came to her own decision. What was the next step for her? And then when someone can come to that own decision for themselves, then regardless of if it goes easily and joyful or painful, they can live with that decision because they're not living from someone else. And so that holding space encompasses you, who you're holding space for, discomfort, feeling all of that flowing. But it's really that open energy in that heart.
I want to tack a similar story on here. When my son was in college, he was a very young college student. He was across the country from me. And he called me one day with a very sensitive sexual issue that he wanted to discuss. And I talked with him about it. And at the end of our conversation, I said, this is going to show my own prejudice, but I always expected to have a conversation like this with my daughter, but I didn't expect to have it with my son. And so I want to thank you for trusting me enough with this. And he said, well, there's a reason that I do. Don't Mom, do you want to know what it is? And I said, yes. And he said, if I ever heard you, and all the times I've been sharing with you, if I'd ever heard you say so much as I would never have told you another thing.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I think it is something that is super important for us to recognize when it comes to conscious parenting. So we have gone for almost an hour and we have had an incredible conversation. And so before we go, can you please let our listeners know, Tia, where they can get a hold of you and what you have available?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website at Tia Fagan, and it's F as in Frank, AGAN.com, or on Instagram, Tia Fagan Coach. I will be honest, I'm not the best at social media. It's not my favorite, but I do show up there from time to time. And if anyone wants to learn a little bit, I should, and I noticed the should, and I'm like, wait, but is it authentic? And so recognizing that. And, if they want to learn more about how do you set an intention in parenting? I do have a free, you can find it on my website or through Instagram. I have a worksheet that can help you identify what is your primary intention right now in your parenting. It doesn't have to stay. We shift and evolve and change.
Yeah.
But it's a step-by-step, so you can say like, this is my intention in parenting. And so it can help you manifest, show up for yourself, show up for your kids, reparent yourself in the whole process. So
I downloaded and filled that out last night, and I want to say that it's very, very thorough and helpful. So I really want to encourage people to get that. It's a 4-page
download
document that you can download and fill out and carry around with you and contemplate on. It's really great. Thanks, Tia.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tia, for offering that value to our listeners. And, you know, if anything, just get started working on yourself. That's where it starts. Is just start to recognize your worth, start to recognize your value as a parent, and start to recognize the lessons that are coming to you. Because once you start to do that, it's actually quite an exciting experience.
It is,
because that it's an opportunity for you to expand and to grow. So we thank you for your time today. Thank you, Ilene, once again.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
And we'll keep in touch, Tia. Let us know how everything's going, and I'll put everything on the show notes, and I will let you know once it's published. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.